Like, give me the mission, give me my materials, or let me know what my materials are, the logistics, and I'm gonna handle the mission.
This is the Construction Veteran Podcast.
Construction Veteran Podcast.
Connecting and celebrating veterans in construction. Now, here's your host, Scott Friend.
Welcome back to the Construction Veteran Podcast. I'm Scott Friend. Today I'm excited to bring to you guys Jason Becker, a Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and current podcast host of the Arc Junkies podcast. Let's dig into it. Hey Jason, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Doing good. How you been?
I'm good. Very good. I appreciate you doing this. So Jason and I haven't had the opportunity to officially meet yet. Maybe if I can get my butt down to FabTech or something, or get out there to Orlando to his school, I'd love to meet in person. But you guys heard me interview Stephanie Hoffman, and her and Jason are good friends, and Jason will go into it in a little bit, but he actually runs the school that she started. So hopefully we'll meet up at some point, man.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If you come down to Orlando, let me know. I'd love to have you at the school, or if you're coming out to FabTech, I'm going to be there the whole time.
Awesome. So before we get into your service background, so what is FabTech?
FabTech is North America's largest welding, metal forming, shaping, polishing. The list goes on and on. It's all about metal and everything that surrounds it, whether it's manufacturing, construction. It's all equipment, tools, new technology, everything, all under one roof for about 3 days.
Awesome. Yeah, and so that's in October, is that correct?
Yeah, October, I think it's 15th to the 17th.
Yeah, so if you guys are available or you happen to be in Orlando, I would definitely check it out. There's a lot of cool people I know that are going to that, and then Jason will be there as well. So obviously it's the Construction Veteran Podcast, so I want to ask you, what is your service background?
So I joined the Marine Corps in 2000. I didn't actually go to boot camp until November 2001, so shortly after 9/11 incident.
Oh, wow.
I was actually slated to go on, I think my original date to go to boot camp was September 16th, but after September 11th happened, they did a stop loss, stop move. I didn't end up going to Paris Island until, November 25th.
Man, that's wild. So I got to ask, so you enlisted before you left, and you said 2000, so when all that went down, I mean, what was going through your mind? Like, you're already pretty much locked in and you're leaving.
Yeah, because I had depped in like December 9th, 2000. Like, I knew I was going to join the Marine Corps. I wanted to graduate, spend that summer with my friends, and hang out with my girlfriend at the time. And then I was ready to go off to boot camp. And it was a time of peace. Nothing was really going on. I was like, I knew I wanted to join the military since like a young age, and it was just that time in my life, and I planned everything out to where it was going to work out for me. And then September 11th happened, and that kind of threw a wrench in things. Not really, but I mean, I was like, wow, things things just got real. I woke up at 9 o'clock that morning and seen the news footage and everything, and I was like, oh crap, we're going to war. And I mean, that's not the reason that I signed up, obviously, because I didn't know that was going to happen. But I was like, well, I'm already signed up. I'm enlisted. I signed the paperwork, so I guess it's gonna be a little bit different trip than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, for sure. So out of all the branches, what is it that drew you to the Marine Corps?
It was the hardest one. I don't like taking the easy route in anything that I do. And I had a couple uncles that were, former Marines, and, I watched a lot of Full Metal Jacket, and my buddies and I, we were all in ROTC, but it was Air Force ROTC. And I kind of didn't want to go that route. I liked things a little bit, like I said, harder things, more difficult things. So I decided to go the Marine Corps route. A lot of the guys that I was in ROTC with, they were all joining up. I was actually slated to go down to see the Army recruiter. And one of my buddies, Neil Walker, he's like, hey, man, come down here and talk to my recruiter. I'm getting ready to join the Marines. I was like, okay. So I went down there to the Marine Corps recruiting station and talked to them. And I mean, that just made up my mind right there. That sealed the deal.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny. You look back and you think, obviously, the Marine Corps is the toughest branch at its base, right? But you look into like special tactics in the Air Force and you go, man, the Air Force has that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, the PJs, man, those guys are no joke.
Oh, yeah. So what did you do in the Marine Corps?
I was a welder, conveniently enough, because I was taking welding classes in high school. And So I promised my mom, because she was like dead set against me joining the Marine Corps. She wasn't really too keen on me joining the military, but she kind of made me the promise. She's like, okay, I'll support you joining the military if you join any other branch other than the Marine Corps. And when I came home and said, hey, I'm joining the Marine Corps, we had some mixed words. But yeah, it was, so my recruiter, he guaranteed me one of two jobs, and he said I could be, you pick two jobs. So I promised my mom, because I was her only natural born son, that I would not pick a combat related MOS. So I picked welder or combat engineer. I figured combat engineer, that's kind of, splitting hairs at that point,
Yeah.
I could get away with that one. And I ended up going through Marine combat training, and right after that, they issue your MOS, and I was slated to be a welder. So that worked out perfect for me, because I already had somewhat of a background related to welding, because I got certified when I was in high school, and then they sent me up to Aberdeen, Maryland, to go through additional training.
Very cool. So, did you happen to go through any training with any Navy guys, any Seabees that were welders?
Yes. So up at Aberdeen, Maryland, it was mixed. So we had
Yeah.
we went to school with, we had Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and I think even a couple of Coasties right there. So you go through like the first couple of months, kind of like with all the different branches, and then like the last, I don't know, 5-6 weeks, you go to like we went to what's called Marine Unique. So we learned how to weld on armor plating. The Air Force, they split off. They learned how to do titanium. I'm not sure what the Army and the Navy did, or the Coast Guard, but everybody kind of like the last portion of it, they went to their own like specialty type training for the branch of service that they enlisted in.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we had something similar. So, the builder school, I was trained by an Army guy and a civilian, but we had everybody in the same class. We had, Army, Navy, Marine. We didn't have any Marines down there, come to think about it. Well, we did have some Air Force, but we didn't split off just because, building is building. It's kind of carpentry is the same.
Right.
So we didn't really specialize until you get to your battalion, but that's neat. So, Jason, you've got your fingers in everything. You got out of the Marine Corps. I want to talk about that a little bit. You went back into welding. But what do you do right now? What would you say, out of the millions of things that you're doing, what is considered your day job?
Oh man, it's weird, because I had my buddy Charlie Cross labeled me this one day, and as he was introducing me to somebody, and he introduced me as an entrepreneur. And I was like, man, I'm not an entrepreneur. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, wait, yeah, I guess I am. So I set up my own welding school. So we do short-term welding training. I got a school called Underground Metalworks. My business partner and I, he's a retired Navy chief. We set up a short-term welding school essentially for home hobbyists, makers, DIYers, and stuff like that. I also set up another business called WeldWorks Training Center that specializes in weld procedure development and welding certifications. We're also an accredited testing facility through the American Welding Society. And then in addition to all that, I run the Arc Junkies podcast, which is, an LLC. That's also, I guess that's the third business that I kind of operate. So I guess you could say entrepreneur, but everything is kind of centered around the world of welding.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of people know you from Arc Junkies. I'm a listener myself. If you guys haven't checked that out, awesome show. I really appreciate just the wide breadth of people that you have on there. You got, metal artists, you've got people that are engineers, inspectors, teachers like yourself. But yeah, so entrepreneur, I'd say that's a fair assessment. That's a fair label to put on you, because you kind of got involved in everything. So where's the school at? We discussed that a little bit.
So we're located in Orlando, Florida.
Very cool. And so what do you guys offer down there?
So basically, we do a 1-week comprehensive course. We cover stick welding, MIG welding, TIG welding on steel, stainless, and aluminum. We touch on flux core, a little bit of spool gun for aluminum. And then I run weekend classes as well. So we have a weekend MIG class and a weekend TIG class. And then I have a nighttime track that kind of emulates the daytime program, but they only meet twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that class goes for 6 total weeks for a total of 12 sessions.
Cool. So would you say that you see more of people like myself that are mainly interested in just, hey, I want to weld on the side, or do you also get a fair amount of folks that want to do this as a career?
It's a good mix. So every class is a little bit different. It's each class is kind of made up of, I usually get one home hobbyist, an artist, somebody that's recently retired or getting ready to retire, and then somebody that's kind of wanting to take a welding program out for a test drive. So like if you're wanting to take a welding class, that can be a big commitment. If you don't know that you definitely want to get into this industry, if you kind of like just want to dip your toes in it to see if you want to spend, $15,000-$20,000 on welding education and anywhere from 6 months to 18 months out of your life going to school full time, come down, take a class for a week and see if you actually like welding. See if you like the environment you're going to be working in, the tools you're going to be messing around with, all the safety aspects. So it's been a good mix of people from all different backgrounds, that everybody's got a different goal when they come in the program. And the cool thing is, now that I own and run the program, I can focus in on what everybody is there for. Whereas if you go to a traditional welding program, they've got a set curriculum, there's a guideline, a content calendar, whatever. You got to follow that to a T. I've had students come down, they're like, hey, I want to take the week-long class, but I don't want to do this process, or I'd really like to, spend a little bit more time in this process. Cool. Everybody has their own station. Each station is capable of doing, everything that we teach the program. So it's kind of easy to cater, different processes to the folks that are coming in.
Yeah, neat. Well, hold me accountable, man, because I want to come down there and take the TIG class at least at a minimum.
Okay.
So I would assume these are not just folks coming from Florida. What's the furthest you've seen somebody travel to take a class with you?
I had 2 guys come down from Connecticut.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they drove down and they brought their dog Meatball, so they're brothers. And the one guy brought his dog down, Meatball, and he's an American pocket bully. One of the coolest dogs I've ever seen, man. I love, I'm a big fan of dogs. I love dogs. But this was like one of the coolest dogs ever. Just great personality and demeanor. But yeah, they drove all the way down from Connecticut to take this program because one of them had taken a class with Stephanie. So the program used to be located in Forked River, New Jersey. And I bought it from Stephanie Hoffman and moved it down to Orlando, Florida. But the brother had already taken that class. And he's like, well, he was telling his brother, how much of a good time that he had and all the stuff that he learned. And then he found out that, the program moved all the way down to Orlando. So he got his brother interested, and they just decided to drive all the way down and take the class for a week.
Man, I would say the class price also is extremely reasonable. So if anybody's listening and they're interested in that, I would love it if you could make like a satellite program in Texas. That'd be a little easier on my wallet, but
right.
I would love to come down there, and you got Universal Studios and everything down there. So take the whole family, make a deal out of it.
Yeah, I've had some folks come down that, they stayed like in the Tampa area. But the gentleman, he came down from Pennsylvania. He was a small business owner, and he just wanted to get more proficient at stick welding. So that's kind of what we focused in on that week. And then we did some open root applications. But he just wanted to come down and take the program. So he brought his entire family down. They were doing, fun stuff to do in Central Florida in the evening. And then he would come back in and do the day class, during the day. And then that weekend they went out and hit up some of the theme parks and stuff.
If my wife listens to this episode, you heard it first. Help me out.
There's plenty of time to go to the theme parks and take a welding class. I'll have you out the door by 3:30.
Nice. Yeah, she doesn't even listen to this though.
My wife doesn't listen to my podcast either.
Yeah. So let's back up. So you welded before you got into the Marine Corps, and as you're getting out, I mean, was this something on your mind that you wanted to go back into welding? Were you not sure?
I had no idea. Like we just got back from a deployment in Iraq, and I was right up against my EAS when I came back, including my terminal leave. I came back, went to SIF, turned in all my gear, went through SEPs and TAPs, did that whole 9 yards. And then I got out, and I really didn't have a plan because my original plan was to re-enlist. And shortly before I left Iraq, I was like, you know what? I had some issues while I was over there. Nothing too bad. But I was like, you know what? I've completely changed my trajectory. I'm gonna get out of the military. I'm gonna go back home. And so my immediate first thought was, I'm gonna get into law enforcement. One of the things I always wanted to be when I was growing up was, I knew I wanted to go military, and the other professions that I was thinking about was either a police officer or a lawyer. And I just don't think I'm cut out to be a lawyer. There's a lot of reading involved with it, and I'm not I like pictures. I'm a Marine, right? I eat crayons and stuff. So pictures are great. But I got back, and I think I was getting ready to apply for Orlando Police Department and the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and like the pay was ridiculously low. And I was like, man, you telling me I got to get shot at for $28,000 a year? I was like, that's not going to work. Yeah, I was making more when I got out of the military. I was like, I got to find something to equivalent to what I was doing in the military. And so I just started going through the classified ads because that's kind of how you would find a job, back around 2005. You just open up the local paper, and there was a shop hiring. They were looking for somebody that could do aluminum spool gun work. And I was like, man, I just got done welding howitzers, out in the middle of the freaking desert for, months on end. I'm pretty handy with a spool gun. So I applied, went down there, and they put me to work right out of the gate. And I think having my background in the military definitely helped. You got discipline, leadership, integrity, all that stuff that kind of helps out, looks good on a resume. And I started off with this company doing handrails and putting in stairs and stuff like that. Well, it turns out they weren't a stair and handrail company. That's just one of the jobs that they had. They were actually a structural steel ironworking company. And so when we got done with the stairs and handrails, or when we slowed down with that, they put me out with these other crews doing structural steel. And so I just kind of fell into ironwork that way, and I fell in love with that.
Iron workers are definitely a special breed, so I'm sure you fit right in
Oh,
getting
yeah.
out of the service.
Yeah.
I love our iron workers. So I got a question about taps real quick. It seems like everybody has their own kind of take on it. Or what did they talk about when you got out? Did they mention this industry whatsoever?
Not really. I want to say, like, the only thing I remember from SEPs and TAPs was they're like, okay, you got to kind of transition from being in the military. So, drop off all the military jargon, all the acronyms and stuff that we use. Don't use the F word like it's a comma. Went through like some of that stuff. I think they went over like how to write a resume or some of the transferable skills we had because we were in the military, like very general. And then they gave us a bunch of pamphlets and brochures. Again, I'm not big on reading. I like pictures. About some of the benefits, through the VA and some of the different programs that were out there. But it wasn't, I don't know, I think they could have done a much better job. I think SEPs and TAPs was in total 5 days. I think it was like 2 days for SEPs and 3 days for TAPs or something to that effect, or vice versa. But the military spent, 4 years turning me into a Marine, right? And then they spent 5 days trying to turn me into a civilian.
Yeah.
So to try and reprogram somebody within 5 days and set them on a path to success when they get out, I think there should be a lot more that it should be a lot more time and effort put into that. And I think they're changing a lot of that now. I know there's programs like Operation Next, and they've got all these different programs where you can get out and you can get into a trade school the last 6 months of your enlistment, and you can go learn a skilled trade. I think that's definitely a step in the right direction. Or you can start taking college classes prior to your EAS. I think that's definitely something that more people should be taking advantage of as they're trying to transition out, because there's a lot of things that they don't cover in SEPs and TAPs. You lose your entire network. Once you EAS, like your buddies from they're not calling you. Your fire team's not calling you. Your platoon's not checking in on you. You're on your own island. It's a weird transition that I don't know that they could actually train people how to cope with that better.
Yeah, we had ours was pretty quick too. I don't think it was during taps, but I do recall like getting out. It was, well, you're going to end up digging a ditch, or you're going to end up in construction. That wasn't what people wanted to do at the time. So a lot of it, when I got out in 2011. A lot of it was like IT, and I didn't want to do that whatsoever. And I hear you with the 5 days. Like, there's a lot to cram into that. And SkillBridge is one of those programs I think you're talking about too, where they get the internship. That was not around when I was in. I'm sure it wasn't around when you were in.
No.
But yeah, they're doing a lot better. And that was kind of the impetus of why I started the show, was just to expose people to this industry and just how beneficial it can be. So I want to ask, how do you think you listed some of those soft skills, but how do you think your service really helped you to get to where you're at today?
I think just the impression that people have, from military folks in the blue collar world, mostly construction, they're very patriotic people, so they really appreciate your service. As soon as they find out you're in the military, they're, oh, thank you for your service. So when you walk in and you have that listed on your resume, they're like, oh, I already know right off the bat that this person's going to show up. They're going to do a good job. I'm not going to have to explain things 100 times, or, why we need to do things. I'm going to be able to tell them to do something. They're going to go do it, because people in the military, they're mission oriented. Like, give me the mission, give me my materials, or let me know what my materials are, the logistics, and I'm going to handle the mission. Right. So I think a lot of people, they see that and they anticipate that and they expect that from people when they bring them in from the military. So I mean, that's definitely something you want to have listed on your resume. I probably didn't need to list all the stuff that I did while I was in the military because, like I said, most of the blue collar folks, they're very patriotic. So as soon as they see that on a resume, like they want you to come work for them.
Yeah, I think one piece of advice I got that really stuck out to me was at least quantify what you did, like how many linear feet of this type of weld did you do? But what I was doing was, okay, we built this many square feet of logistical housing, or we did this. I quantified that kind of stuff. So I was like you, I didn't go into every single little detail, but it was at least I wanted people to see the numbers, and that
Mhm.
might. th- You're right that it comes getting out of the service. It comes with that automatic level of respect. Um, which 98% of the people that get out of the service are probably very good, upstanding people. That we know some knuckleheads. I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah.
Um, but there's that automatic expectation of, okay, this person's going to be on time. One thing I was taught as we're talking, this reminded me that one of my chiefs when I was in, he said something to the effect of, "Hey, look, like if you screw up, just take responsibility. Just don't have excuses. Look, you sucked. You did something wrong. Just own up to it." And that's helped me personally in my professional career as well. Is, hey, I'm not going to do that again. I screwed up. I didn't know it was an accident, and move on. And I
Yep.
think there's a lot of people that are afraid to do that. Like they're afraid of the repercussions.
No, 100%. That's the first thing I do when I screw something up. I'd go to the boss man and tell on myself, "Hey, I screwed this up, or I wasn't paying attention, and this happened." And like, I would go tell on myself, just because, like, same thing you were saying. Don't try to hide it. If you screw up, just make it known. It's just
Yeah.
a lot easier that way. You build a lot more trust that way.
Yeah, I mean, in our industry too, I'd rather I own up to it than like an inspector find it or an architect or engineer find it. Hey, look, man, I gotta fix this. I know what I did. I gotta fix it.
Mhm.
So, if you came out of the service again, we're backing up. Do you think you would go straight into welding, or do you think, knowing what you know now, you might have taken maybe a different path? Maybe not outside of welding as a whole, but instead of going to like ironwork and what you did, do you think you would take a different path?
Knowing what I know now, no, I probably would have jumped in a little bit harder. Just I probably would have started looking for structural steel ironwork. Um, yeah, it's kind of different. Everybody's got like a different path when they get out. But I mean, I really enjoyed the getting into the welding industry. I mean, like I said, it's something that I had before I got in the military, never as a profession, just more as a skill set. And then while I was in the military, I mean, it was a super valuable skill set to have because you got folks from all over the base, coming to get stuff repaired and fixed. So it makes you feel valuable. And, like welding's taken me so many different places. And I've done so many cool things and met so many awesome people that I couldn't see myself doing anything other than welding.
So I'm gonna call you out on the spot. So tell me like the coolest spot you think you've been, or the coolest job that you got to do.
Well, because of welding, I got to go to the um, Sun and Fun Air Show, and I got to ride in like an antique T6 airplane with the Aeroshell acrobatic team.
Oh, cool.
So Lincoln Electric asked me, they were like, "Hey, can you do some weld demos at our tent and everything like this? Where we've got a booth set up for the distributors. They're selling equipment, and oh yeah, by the way, we sponsor the Aeroshell acrobatic team, and we have a couple of spots if you want to jump in one of these airplanes. Like, I can probably get you a seat." Uh, at the time, I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm really not interested in that." Then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, "You know what? Screw it. Yeah, let's do this thing." So I got to go. I got to go with them, and they did like their whole show. So we got to do like the barrel rolls and the loops and all that stuff. And you look out, and the other plane is like literally 18 inches away from your wing to wing, 18 inches away. And I mean, it was just a really cool experience. But I mean, had I not gotten into the welding industry and met some of the connections that I had, I don't think I would have been able to ever do that.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize just how many opportunities are out there. Like I got to go overseas for a year on contract to Germany. My wife and I had just gotten married, so we got to explore Europe. What are some of the cool places that you've heard some other welders go and do?
I had a buddy when I was in the ironworkers. He got slated to go to Belgium, or
Oh, cool.
Brussels, to go do some welding on Inconel. So he had to do a bunch of tests prior to leaving here to prove that he was proficient. Before they put him on an airplane and sent him over there. But I want to say he was over there for like 6 months, and like once a month they would fly his wife over, and they could go tour around the country and all that stuff. I mean, that'd be a kind of a cool trip. That welding enabled him to have it. An experience like that.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, there's a lot out there for folks that are in the trades, and when you've got bigger cities like I'm just south of Dallas, and Dallas is booming. So I know there are some people. I'd say it's a mixed bag. There's some people that do want to go out and see the world, but there's also people that want to stay close to home. But I've heard you talk previously on your show. It's a lot of guys chase the money early on, and that's fine. I would say if you're going to chase the money, definitely do it while you're young.
Yep.
You don't have commitments, or maybe it's just you and a spouse. But there are some good jobs close to home too. If money's not the goal, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make a lot of money going out on the road and doing it, but like you said, do that while you're young, while you don't have any commitments, while you're not tied down before you get married and start a family and all that stuff, because then it's twice as hard, because then you're constantly leaving your family to go out and put food on the table, and then you get used to making this money and
Yeah.
you kind of start living this specific lifestyle. Now you have to maintain those funds coming in to live that lifestyle, but you're never home. You're constantly working to support your family back at home, to pay off the house, the nice truck, all that other stuff that goes along with it. Do that stuff while you're young and save it up. Like I've met so many welders out there that they go out there and they make ridiculous money for years on end, and they just piss it all away, while
They
they're
buy
out
the
there on the
brand
road.
new dually.
Yeah, they waste all their money, and then they come back and they got nothing to show for it. But if you put that money aside, I've had a financial advisor come on my show a couple times and talk about, here's how to set up a will and trust. Here's how to set up life insurance. Here's how to save up money and pay off debt, and, be smart and financially intelligent with your money versus, just spending it on, just because you got the money doesn't mean you need to spend it,
Yeah. No, that's wise having that out there because, I don't know when you were in, it's like the financial stuff was available, but I don't know if many of us actually took advantage of it and went and sought out a financial advisor.
No, probably should have though.
Yeah, no, dude, amen. Especially with the like deployment pay you get back. I bought
Yeah,
like a guitar and a brand new computer. I didn't know how to invest my money or save it.
right.
And speaking of the travel too, it's not like the money's bad close to home.
Hmm.
It's not a bad living, and that's welding. That's really any trade. You want to talk about like getting into overtime pay, or when I say travel, sometimes that travel, the companies will have that limit of, okay, if you're driving over 50 miles, you're going to get some sort of per diem. 50 miles in Dallas is like an hour drive, so it's bonkers. I'm saying that from experience. I'm 52 miles from the job site right now, and it's roughly an hour to get there. So some companies have that, we don't, but some companies have that per diem. So man, you could still be home every day having dinner with your family and making really good pay.
Yeah.
So if you went back in this journey, so, pre-Marine Corps, after the Marine Corps, to get where you got, do you think there's anything maybe you would have, I know you said you would just like go all out, but is there anything you think you would have tweaked and given some advice to somebody younger or your younger self that might have taken you on that path a little quicker?
It's hard to say. I probably would have even though I had welding skills going into the military, and then, I got trained as a welder in the military. I think going back, that probably would have put me on a much faster track to success would be to go to a trade school as soon as you get out of the military. Even though I had all the, the skills and the knowledge and the abilities and stuff, going to another school, I think that would have helped me develop another network. It would have given me time to perfect and hone my craft. And it would have given me more opportunities, because a lot of schools, they start with job placement, so where I was going through a newspaper trying to find something, locally in the area that I could go out and, work. Going through a trade school, they provide you with more options. I just there wasn't many options in the classified section, but going through a school, working with a career counselor and all that stuff, plus, stacking up industry recognized certifications and stuff like that. Learning how to do it as a civilian versus, being in the military, I think that would have put me on a much faster track than kind of fumbling through it.
Yeah, that's smart. And the programs like they have now, if I were to go back, I mean, if you're doing a full-time program, let's say I wanted to be a welder and I wanted to do a SkillBridge program, but I was going to go school full-time, trade school full-time, how long would it take somebody before they come out as a certified welder?
It really depends. I taught at a college for about 9 years, between two colleges for about 9 years. And when I left, we had set up a new program that was 28 weeks long. So the students would come to class from 7:30 to 3:30, or 7:30 to 2:30 every day, Monday through Thursday, and they could knock out the program in 28 weeks, and they could get multiple certifications while they were in there. That's with stick, MIG, TIG, flux core, like all the different processes, all the different positions. That probably about 6 weeks. But I know there's other programs that they're full time for 18 months. So it just depends on what school you get into, um, what their reputation is and things of that nature. But I would say anywhere from 6 months to a year.
Yeah, so you pretty much do have the opportunity. You could do a SkillBridge program or something of that type and possibly get out, have enough school. And like you said, there's stuff as small as 6 weeks or short of 6 weeks. So they could, in theory, do a school and get right to work
Hmm.
within that 6 month period if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a no brainer, man. And there's plenty of programs out there. I know our electricians here locally, specifically, they've got where they work during the day and then they go to their trade school. I think it's like 2 or 3 nights out of the week. So these guys, even though the SkillBridge program doesn't pay, I think it's some weird conflict of interest or something. The DoD won't pay you, or they'll pay you, but the company can't pay you at the same time. Something weird, but it's free labor, I guess, for them. Anyway, not getting into the politics of that, but
Right.
so yeah, it's man, I wish I had that when I was back in.
Yeah, and I know that there's another program. It might be part of the Skills Bridge, but I'm not sure exactly what it's called. But I had a student that he had his GI Bill, and he decided to join. I lined him up with a position with the Ironworkers Union when he graduated my program. So he already went through 44 weeks of the program that I had been teaching. That was the program previous to our 6 month track. So he went through the class 44 weeks, joined the Ironworkers Union. They were going to start him off as an apprentice. Well, because he had the GI Bill would pay him the difference between his apprenticeship pay and journeyman scale for all the hours that he would work. So I think he just had
Wow.
to submit his hours and stuff like that, and then the VA would pay him the difference between apprenticeship scale and journeyman scale, which is
Yeah,
like
that's
six,
awesome.
$7 an hour. You add that
Yeah.
up for 40 hours a week. Plus, most of the time when you go out with the Ironworkers Union, that's kind of where I ended up right around 2010. Um, that's probably $6, $7 an hour difference. We were working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. I mean, there was times we were going out there working 7 12s. So
Wow.
banging lots of overtime.
Well, in theory too, I guess you could use man, I'm having a brain fart with the funds, tuition assistance. I mean, because I got a lot of my basic like community college classes out of the way with my tuition assistance, which was free. It didn't pull out of your GI Bill. So I guess there's a possibility if you find the right school, you could start doing night school while you're in, and in theory, you could get out as a car hauling welder or carpenter.
Yeah, it's a good possibility. I mean,
Yeah,
as long as they got a school in your area. We did have a guy that was he was active duty Marines, and I think he was on some program where he had 6 months because I think he had to go back like 2 weeks before graduation. But he'd already completed all of his coursework. So I mean, he was pretty much graduated at that point. He just wasn't going to be around for the ceremony.
yeah, it's wild, man. There's a ton of opportunity out there now for sure.
Yeah.
That was not there a decade plus ago.
No, and I mean, and that's a good thing because it's getting better. It's never going to be perfect, but it's continuously getting better, which is a step in the right direction. For years, we did a horrible job at taking care of our veterans, and it's still not great, but it's definitely getting better.
Yeah, yeah, man. And I think that's like guys in our generation that are seeing the way that we transitioned out and didn't have a ton of that opportunity, at least not that we knew of. But we're the ones really pushing for that now. So I'm definitely seeing a change.
Yep.
So I want to take a turn and talk about mental health a little bit. Um, Obviously, it's a massive problem within the military, and it's also a huge problem in the construction industry. So we've got vets or anybody really listening, that's just the industry. I say it almost every episode. It'll eat you alive if you let it, because there's a lot of tough personalities. There's long hours. There's a lot of difficulty. It's rough on your body. If you had somebody that's just kind of struggling and trudging to get along or go, day by day, what would you say to them?
Find somebody to reach out to. A lot of times, especially men, prior service and in construction, we're the last ones to talk about our feelings. So when you start heading down that dark path, like go find a counselor or find, a battle buddy that you can confide in. Find somebody to talk to. If you keep that stuff inside, you try to battle all those demons yourself. I mean, we're losing north of 22 a day to suicide. You take a transition out of the military, you add construction industry on top of that, like you were saying, with the long hours, the demanding work, the physical task that's on your body. A lot of people try to drink that away or use drugs, or they find other bad habits to get into to kind of cope with what they're feeling inside, or mental thoughts or anything like that. Go find somebody to talk to. The VA has a lot of great resources. They can link you up with a mental health counselor. It's not a sign of weakness to reach out and ask for help. And I think that's the biggest hang up is, no, I'll do it myself. Well, you have to know when to ask for help, and don't be ashamed.
That's a good point. Yeah, our common joke at work is I'm like, well, I'm a superintendent. I don't have feelings. So,
Yep. Leave your feelings at the house and all that stuff. Yeah.
But thankfully, some of the guys I came up under before I became a super, the superintendents I worked for were, just good dudes. And hey, how's your home life, man? What's going on? And they could tell, you wear it on your face. So yeah, some of the superintendents that I came up under, the guys were really cool. Like, hey, if you need to take a day off, then take a day off, man. Just chill out. We can tell you're wearing it on your face. I never understood the concept of, well, I got 100 PTO days stored up. Like, that sucks, man. I bet your personal life is horrible. Like,
Yeah.
dude, take care of your personal life first. Especially now as I got 3 kids, so as a dad and as a husband, like, stuff happens, man. Kids get injured, or you got big family events. So I think that's the one thing is we don't focus very well in this industry on the at home life, because we're mostly construction folks are very type A, and especially being a veteran, we want to get it done, get after it as hard as we can, but we tend to let the family fall by the wayside. So
yeah, there's a lot of ego and pride involved in that, and taking time off from work, whether it's vacation, paid time off, sick days. Like, I think I took maybe 3 days since I got out of the military. I think I've had 3 sick days. And that's because my company that I was working for, they're like, no, you have to stay home until you get a doctor's note to return. I had the flu. But had they not barred me from coming into the facility, like, I would have been at work, sick, tired, whatever, not taking vacation time. It's a sense of pride. You want to complete that job. You want to complete that task. You want to be there for your teammates.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that. I think what I'm getting after is that I would much rather that individual come back like healthy and whole,
Yeah.
and then they can really get after it than just kind of trudging along and then all of a sudden they snap. Because I've been there too, man. And I've had colleagues of mine that they take a sick day and these are fellow vets, they took a sick day because they're like, look, my head's not in the right spot. I don't want to snap on anybody. Okay, cool, man. I totally respect that, especially as a fellow vet. Like, I get that. Take your time.
Yeah, you got to know your limitations.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And 2, I would say humble yourself. If somebody else is calling it out on you, because I've had that happen to me as well. If somebody else is calling that out on you, like, hey, man, maybe you should take a couple days off. Like, if they're seeing it, it's bad. And if you're not seeing it at that point, like, you should probably just suck it up and listen to them. And don't complain about getting a couple days off free,
Right.
So the big purpose behind this show is I'm trying to encourage people as they're getting out of the service, or anybody out there listening, to get into this industry. What would you say, like, you're finding joy in, specifically like actually doing the welding? What would you say you find joy in, and that you can encourage other people to want to join this industry?
I say just the work that I'm doing. You leave behind a sense of pride. You're building something tangible. You get in. I always use the analogy of an accountant. Like, nobody cares about the spreadsheets they're putting together. You get the final numbers and you're done. And it's just a document that lives on a computer somewhere. But when I go out and I erect a building, or have a hand in putting a theme park together, or welding up something for the neighbor down the street, like, you leave a piece of yourself in every project that you're doing. There's a sense of pride to be able to say that, hey, I worked on that, or I built that, or I did that. I think my kids and my wife, they kind of get tired of hearing it, because we'll drive all around Central Florida. I say, you see that building? I built that.
Daddy built.
You see that handrail? Daddy built that. Like, we go to the theme parks. You see that post you're leaning up on, that gate? Daddy built that. So I remember all the stuff that I got to work on. And, so many people get to see, your legacy, essentially. Welds last forever if they're put in right, and nobody, does a demo on it. That stuff's going to be there for, it's going to stand the test of time. So you're leaving behind a legacy. So it's something you can put your pride into. And one thing about welding is it's very therapeutic. So, no matter what I've got going on inside my head, as soon as I flip my hood down, everything else goes away. I can turn everything off. As soon as that little arc lights up on the inside of the hood, like, Nothing else matters. It's just me and that molten ball of metal.
Yeah, I know you've talked about it in the past, and I've talked about it with buddies on my show. It's kind of like jujitsu. And so when you're in that position and you're getting pummeled, like there's nothing else you can really even think about if you wanted to. And I would liken that to welding too. You drop the hood and I got to concentrate on this. So I don't have the bandwidth to focus on anything else about, except for what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Especially like
very,
going to work
very
in the
helpful.
shop, I put my headphones in, find a specific group or, song that I want to listen to and just kind of go to town. I'm off in my own little world.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I want to give you some time, man, to give any kind of plugs that you want to. You're a pretty busy guy, so we've got the podcast, you got the school. We talked a little bit about that. Anything that you want to say about those?
Yeah, if you guys, if you're interested in welding, come check out the Arc Junkies podcast. I put out new episodes every Monday. I do dabble in YouTube just a little bit. A couple of those episodes are available on YouTube if you're a visual type person. And then if you're interested in taking classes at Underground Metalworks, you can go to underground-metalworks.com. Classes in Orlando. We have classes scheduled all the way out to the end of 2024. There's something there for everybody. And I think that's pretty much it. And if you're coming down to FabTech, we're doing an Arcs and Ales event at the pub on the 17th, I believe. So come out, have a drink, meet up, and then we're doing a Weld Porn Blue Demon meetup on the 15th, I believe. That's that Tuesday over at Hard Rock Live at Universal City Walk.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have enough PTO saved up, I don't think, to come down to FabTech, man. I wish. Next year, maybe.
Yeah, next year will be in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Chicago's a good one. I'm hoping that they keep Orlando in the rotation. We'll see, though.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. Yeah,
it'll be the first time it's ever been in Orlando. So,
cool.
I prefer the Orlando show, even though I haven't been to it yet, over Atlanta, just because not a big fan of that city. I don't know. It's just too congested getting in and out of.
Yeah, you don't want to come to Dallas then, man. Trust me.
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah. I will say, Jason, I've learned a lot over the years. I bought my welder probably 6-7 years ago, something like that. And between you and a handful of folks that had some YouTube videos out, you've been extremely helpful. So for anybody out there that even just wants to get into welding on the side, check out those videos. Check out the school. Between Jason, Stephanie, there's a handful of really good people out there putting out some really good content, and it's helped a dummy like me who's a carpenter pick up a MIG gun and be able to at least stick two pieces of metal together.
That's the goal. Make every weld better than your last.
Yes, sir.
Shameless
you
plug.
got the tattoo. I got the shirt.
Exactly.
Awesome. Jason, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for taking your time out and chatting with me.
Oh, Scott, it's been a blast, man. I appreciate it.
All right, brother.